To measure your cardiac output, the equation used is your heart rate times stroke volume. To calculate your heart rate, you just count how many beats your heart makes per minute. Stroke volume is the volume of blood that gets ejected from the heart per beat. Measuring stroke volume is testable but complex because it would depend on the heart's capacity. If your heart rate increases or your stroke volume increases, then your cardiac output would increase. The values of the heart non-professional athlete is a lot higher than the professional athletes, as the heart is around 30 to 72 beats per minute for non-professionals at rest, whereas it's only 30 beats per minute for a professional athlete at rest. For stroke volume, non-professionals will have a lower stroke volume as their heart won't be as strong as professionals. For example, the stroke volume at pre-exercise is around 80 to 100 millilitres, but the professionals is around 160 to 2,000 millilitres. Finally, the cardiac output would stay the same. The cardiac output would stay the same for both professionals and non-professional athletes. As stroke volume is increasing, there comes to a point where the stroke volume stops increasing when the heart isn't able to fill up in time of the beat. Therefore, at some maximal exercise, this is called a plateau. When stroke volume no longer increases, therefore, after this intensity, cardiac output then relies on the heart in order to increase. The heart rate is controlled by the ANS. There are two branches of the ANS, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The SNS will stimulate the heart rate and the PNS slows down the heart rate. When exercising, the PNS will be removed from the SNS, and the SNS will start to send an accelerator nerve to the SAN to increase the speed of the blood pumping. Through a contraction. As long as you're constantly exercising, your heart rate will increase as you need more oxygen for your muscles, and your heart producing more carbon dioxide. So the circularity system needs to speed up. When finishing exercise, your heart will slow down, just slightly decrease due to the PNS coming back in and sending a vagus nerve to slow the contraction. Blood pressure is the amount of pressure that is on the walls of blood vessels, such as arteries, capillaries, and veins. This pressure is dependent on the heart pumping blood out into the vessels. The value of blood pressure is dependent on the size and diameter of the blood vessel. For example, a capillary would have quite low pressure as there is such a high volume around the body, and the walls of the capillaries are only 1 cell thick. Therefore, high blood pressure may be too strong for the capillaries to handle, so the pressure will be low. In contrast to the arteries, these are the vessels which have high blood pressure as they collect blood straight from the heart, which means the pressure that the heart has exerted to release the blood is impacting the arteries. To cope with these high blood pressure, arteries have thick walls and they are also elastic muscle fibres to make sure the blood can't leave them. The equation for blood pressure is cardiac output times resistant flow. The cardiac output is the heart rate times stroke volume. So when that is measured, you would times this by the resistance to flow. There are factors of resistance which include viscosity, vessel length, and vessel diameter. Viscosity is how thick the blood is, and it is to think then it might not be able to flow, which can cause cardiovascular disease. When at rest, typical blood pressure value should be 120 for systolic and 80 diastolic. As you exercise, blood pressure increases. As your heart rate increases, which causes an increase in cardiac output, therefore resulting in an increase in the blood pressure. Natural high blood pressure is not very healthy. It may mean you have thick blood or thin blood vessels. It is critical that if your blood pressure reaches over 180 for systolic and 120 for diastolic. The units of blood pressure is milligrams of mercury, mmHg meaning milligrams of mercury. If your blood pressure gets too high or too low, baroreceptors will detect this and send cardiac control center in your brain, and your brain will use either vasoconstriction, which will try to increase the blood pressure, or vasodilation, which is the opposite, decreasing the blood pressure. At rest, your heart rate is naturally around 60 to 80 beats per minute. In class, we took 2 tests to measure the student's heart rate, blood pressure, breathing rate, temperature, and blood lactate. One test will be the bleep test, where every 2 levels we measured them. The other test is the Wingate test, where someone is attached to a bike and pedals as hard as they can for 20 seconds. As you can see, the heart rate in the multi-stage fitness test goes up a lot by the pre-test, and it will gradually increase when the test starts. It increases due to the carbon dioxide produced when running and the amount of oxygen needed for the muscles. Also, the pre-test heart rate is a bit higher than the rest due to perhaps nerves before exercise, or where the brain is preparing for the exercise by increasing the heart rate. This is different to the Wingate test, as there's much higher intensity where the student will be cycling at maximal capacity. This shows that at the post-test, the heart rate has risen dramatically. Therefore, at the end of the 20 seconds, the maximal exercise, the heart rate goes up to 120 beats per minute. The other measurement we made was the blood pressure of the students exercising. The result of the multi-stage fitness exercise shows that the blood pressure stays quite similar when it goes up and down, but it ends up a bit higher than at the start. Then the results show that the student has quite low blood pressure, which is healthy. However, we don't get it too low, as there might be something wrong with the blood flow. As the post-test, the blood pressure is 138 to 97, which is around the same of someone at rest, showing the student has good fitness. This is contrast with the Wingate because it's such high intensity. The student's systolic blood pressure has risen dramatically due to the faster contractions and the heart forcing the blood out, whereas the diastolic pressure has decreased. This is unusual, as it would normally go up, but as it is still around 40 mmHg, then it's not seen as a big problem. Overall, the heart rate can also estimate the cardiac output, as the average stroke volume at some maximum is around 100 to 120 millilitres. So you can times the heart rate at level 4 to level 8 by 100, and you can find the cardiac output from the bleep test. The same would apply for the Wingate test. You would use the heart rate at the post-test. In football, your cardiac output will be going up and down, as you will be running at different intensities depending on where you play in the time of the game. If you're a central midfielder, your heart rate should be constantly rising slowly, as the central midfielders are usually players that cover the most ground but at a lower intensity. As perhaps a winger, however, does not run constantly but will be doing big sprints up and down the pitch. Midfielders should also have more stamina, which means that their stroke volume is increased, as they would have a stronger heart and their muscles would be able to get more oxygen. Therefore, for midfielders, their cardiac output should be the highest, as they are running the most, causing an increase in heart rate and having a high stroke volume. On the other hand, there is a completely different way to position such as the goalkeeper, as they do not have to run much at all. Their heart rate will be mainly low during the match, unless he has to do a lot of high intensity work, such as a triple save, a sprint out of his goal, but that doesn't happen often in the game. However, their heart rate may also increase when someone is running towards them in a one-on-one situation, because nerves may kick in. Therefore, they'll become nervous. As a result of this, their cardiac output may be low to the low heart rate. However, in their training sessions, they're still training to be fit, therefore their stroke volume may be quite high depending on how hard they train.